Without further ado, because I think he's waiting, and it's 6:30 in the morning in Boston, I would like to first welcome our next guest speaker. It's Mr. Rodrick Fraser. He's been very busy as of lately, as we all know, with the Boston Marathon incident. He's the Fire Commissioner of the Boston Fire Department. Mr. Fraser directs all aspects of the Boston Fire Department, a business entity with a staff of over 1,400 firefighters and 100 support staff that provides 24-hour fire suppression, emergency management, emergency medical services, fire prevention, and hazardous materials response to the City of Boston. Member and task group chairman of the National Fire Protection Association. He's also a technical committee for the NFPA, which is the 1600 standard on disaster, and he's emergency management and business continuity program. So with that, Rodrick, are you with us?
Well, I'm an early riser, so although it seems a little early, I'm usually at time anyway. So my presentation today is making safety part of your culture. And I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about culture, and then I'll talk more about fire-specific issues and some of the issues that we face in the Boston Fire Department and some of the challenges that we've had to overcome. For purposes of my reference material, I refer to the National Fire Protection Association standards, specifically NFPA 1500, which is the standard on fire department occupational safety and health programs, and also NFPA 1521, which is the standard for fire department safety officer. So I'd like to talk first about culture and what are the common characteristics of any culture. That's language, norms, mores, history, status, and traditions. So in brief definition of each one, with language, I think that although we all speak a language in the fire service, we have our own language. We have certain phrases and terminology that we like to use within the fire service when speaking with other firefighters. Norms, that's our principles of right binding actions. In other words, what is it, what behaviors are we expected to do normally that we consider to be correct? Mores, in other words, what is it, what behaviors are we expected to do normally? A particular group. History, events of the past always play into our culture. Status, our position or our rank, and then traditions, our inherited, established, or customary patterns of behavior, thought, action, that kind of bind all these things together. So, what is a function of a culture? Well, any culture distinguishes one society, a group from another. It helps us assist in interpreting our value structures. It provides a basis for solidarity, which then inspires loyalty and devotion. Provides for social standing, social structure. Culture provides a dominant factor in molding our social personality and then also fostering of acceptance of individuals. Culture provides individuals with meaning and direction. It's both learned and acquired, and culture tends to form some type of a human need gratification. So people feel like they want to be accepted, so they want to participate in whatever's going on. They want to be part of a group or part of a team or part of the culture. So all of these different things kind of help us do our jobs because it allows us to expect certain behavior out of the people that work for us, and then we can kind of better understand what we think they're going to do in any given situation. So how do we acquire culture? Imitation, right? Our junior people in our organization try to imitate the more senior people. So that's important for us to realize because the senior people are going to lead the junior people. It's where do they lead them I think we need to be concerned about, right? That's what my old boss used to say. You know, these guys are going to follow you. It's where you take them that is of interest to me. Indoctrination, that's our formal education training that we provide all of our people, whether it be, and that starts off like when they first enter into the fire service, we start their training on day one. We need to make sure that We're teaching them what we want them to carry through their entire career in the fire service. And then conditioning over time. Different things happen to every individual and to the organization, which then conditions people through training, on-the-job training, real-life things. All these things come together to reinforce a system of reward, a system of punishment, consistent behavior across the board. We have a culture and we have traditions, and we try to follow our traditions, and we try to do what we need to do to make sure that everybody's doing their job properly, everybody's trained, and everybody understands the mission. So next, I'd like to discuss what I call cultural skewing, and that's when your culture kind of drifts over time to be something other than what you want it to be. When the organization consistently behaves in a manner that is not in keeping with your norms and your mores, and this can start from leadership turning a blind eye to bad behavior, right? So people are doing things that we don't want them to do, but the leadership fails to take action, corrective action, fails to step in, and over time this abnormal behavior or behavior that's away from the norms starts to become consistent. Leadership participating in the behavior. You have situations where leadership is not performing properly, so they set a bad leadership example, and then the people underneath them start to follow that same behavior. Groupthink. Members in an organization can relinquish responsibility for their own actions and consider group consensus as the prime objective of existence. So, for example, within the fire service, if everybody as a group decides that something is acceptable, even though leadership may find it to be unacceptable, then in their mind, they're going to move ahead with that unacceptable behavior. So leadership then has to take action. Also, you can have isolated or an insular organization that kind of ignores what's going on in the world or the fire service, and they just are ignorant of advances in technology, advances or changes in regulations and standards, and they just continue with the old way of business, or this is the way we've always done it. So once these abnormal behaviors take place, over time, they then become normal. No one's taking corrective action. Nobody's really paying attention to the store, so to speak, and what I like to say is the chickens are running the chicken coop, right? So now you got everybody in the organization kind of steering the organization away from what it's supposed to be and what it historically has been. Then these traditions have changed. They now include this new behavior that we don't, in the past, we might not have considered acceptable. And now people are behaving in unacceptable behavior. So the fire service is very steeped in tradition, especially the United States, Great Britain, Canada. We have all these traditions that we like to follow. But traditions should be reinforcing our norms and our mores. Traditions should reflect the organization's core values. Tradition should not endanger members of the organization. And leadership must be vigilant to observe these deviations from the norms in our mores and to take corrective action. Expect what you inspect, right? That's a term that we follow. If you don't inspect anything, then you should not expect anything. So if you're not out looking at what your people are doing, talking to your people, talking to your leadership, making sure that they understand core missions of the organization, making sure they understand the core values, and making sure that your leadership is enforcing the rules and regulations, then you can't really expect your people to just kind of do it on their own without any interference. And then see stuff, I think you have to ask, is this really part of our culture, this type of behavior? And if it's not, you need to take action to correct that. So when I took over at the Boston Fire Department as a commissioner approximately 7 years ago, safety was not part of our culture. Okay, we had extremely high injury rates. In our older firefighters, we had a very high rate of cancer. So a majority of our firefighters were actually contracting cancer later on in their careers. We had a high number of motor vehicle accidents with injury. And we had a reluctance of our people to wear their personal protective equipment, not only wear it or use it on a routine basis. So what are the cultural issues that came up out of all this? Well, one is, well, we've always done it this way, Commissioner. We've been doing this for 100 years, and this is the way we do it, and we don't really care about changes in standards. We don't care what other fire departments do. This is what we do in Boston. Well, in some regard, that may be correct, but again, I think you have to step back, look at it, and ask the question, does this make sense? If you're not following the standard, is there a reason for that? What's the best option? Machismo. Firefighters like to be macho. Firefighting is a risky profession. Although we try to manage risk, there's a level of heroism associated with, when you go into a burning building and you save someone's life. Certainly that's a heroic act. We applaud that act, and we thank our firefighters for saving us and saving our families. And that's a badge of courage, which we expect our people to wear proudly. However, we can't let this type of macho or machismo overcome common sense and risk management and put our firefighting teams at risk. And then in some of the larger departments, like my department that's been here for a long time, the Boston Fire Department has been a professional fire department since 1638. I'm certainly sure that there's other fire departments that have been along longer, but in the United States, we're the oldest. So there's a huge reluctance to change in this department. Our chief officers have been with us for over 30 years, and they think that how they, behave, the social norms of the 1970s and the early 1980s are still fine. The equipment they used back then, we should still be using, and there's a reluctance of these older people to embrace new technologies, embrace new tactics, and kind of change the way they're doing business. So, safety and culture. Where do we begin? So, in the Boston Fire Department, we try to follow national and international standards. We develop written standard operating procedures and policies that follow those standards. We train in accordance with our standard operating procedures. Education. We try to educate our leadership and our people on new technologies, new tactics, and specifically in the realm of safety, we try to educate our people on safe behavior and safe practices. We have partnered with the Fire Department Safety Officers Association to provide a lot of this education training for our people, which I'll discuss. So we also believe in certification, certifying our leaders and key personnel to these national standards. An example would be we partnered with the Fire Department Safety Officers Association to provide training and certification to our safety chiefs. So we have assigned safety chiefs. They go to the scene of every incident, every fire, and they report into the incident commander, and their job is to step back, watch the overall operation, and give the incident commander information on unsafe practices and take corrective action to stop those unsafe practices. So I felt that it was important to have those safety chiefs, and we opened it up to basically any chief or company officer that wanted to take the course and become a certified incident safety officer. So we did the incident safety officer program. We have the health and safety officer training program and certification through the Fire Department Safety Officers Association. And we're about to start a new program with them, which is safety at the company officer level. We're going to put all of our company officers through this certification program. Conferences such as this, especially that really are looking at safety and making everything that we do safe. I think these are very important for our people to attend conferences. And then budgeting. I believe that when we do our budgets, our departmental budgets, we should be making sure that we have money in the budget to support these things that we're doing to make our job safer. So why do we follow standards? And we in the U.S. follow the NFPA standards, but these standards were developed with safety and efficiency in mind. It's a consensus within the profession. So you have people, not only leaders in the fire service, but leaders in industry that look at these different things, and there's a consensus on which of these items should be followed. They've been given due process and support before they've been published. By following standards, whether voluntary or not, it's easier to do business within the fire service, within our vendors, in our peers, because all these standards then also become part of our culture, and we're discussing these things. Everybody can understand each other and why we're having the discussion, because we're all following the same standards. Standards foster consistency in operation. Within the Boston area, we have a large mutual aid compact with all the surrounding cities and towns. So if there's a large fire or a large incident in a nearby town, we respond. When we have an incident here, they respond. So we have consistency in operations for these people. And standards will also be the benchmark by which you'll be judged in the future. So if anything happens and there's an investigation, standards are what investigating body is going to follow. They're going to ask the question, were you following the standard when you did this? Standard operating procedures, we talked about that. They should be short, concise, follow the standard, and again, they foster consistency in operation, and they should be understood by all our members. Training. All members should be assigned training in accordance with your standing operating procedures. You may want to do periodic refresher training. And again, drills, exercises, everything should follow the SOP, which should have been written from the standard. Education. I believe the professionals should always be learning and seeking out educational opportunities. We provide executive education for our leadership within the department. We're lucky to be in the same location as Harvard University, and we've partnered with them on a lot of executive education programs for our leadership at Harvard, and we send our people through those. Education also is an opportunity to network with others, your peers within the industry, people from around the world, and you build up this network of people that you can then reach out to and have discussions with and learn from each other. And also, this education and these certifications, they instill confidence in your organization, both internally, because now it's recognized that your people have the knowledge to reach these certifications, but also externally, the public can look at the organization and understand that you're prepared to do your job because you have met all of the standards or exceeded all the standards, and all your people are certified to the standard. Certification validates an individual's knowledge, skills, and abilities. It's the minimum that you should follow, and it should be made a prerequisite for certain job functions. Conferences such as this exposes our leaders and members to new ideas, and again, it develops a network of peers to follow. Some of the problems that we faced early on was safety not being part of our culture. Our safety chiefs had no training as safety officers, and they were not certified. Our apparatus was being purchased without including the newest safety features. We had firefighters maintaining our apparatus who were not trained mechanics, and they should not have been doing that. And we were wearing bunker gear that didn't meet national safety standards. Our helmets did not meet national safety standards. Our personnel were not wearing our personal protective equipment as required. And personnel were not wearing, and in some instances are still not wearing, their SCBAs into a fire. So we took action by joining the Fire Department Safety Officers Association and developing training with them and certification with them that will move us forward. I mentioned that all of our safety chiefs must be certified as incident safety officers, and we're continuing to include more and more safety training for all of our officers within the department. We participate in safety-related conferences. We have a joint labor management safety committee where we get together with members from our management team plus people from the field and the labor union, and we discuss safety issues within the department and how to make it safer and how to fix those issues. We routinely disseminate information to our people. We conducted a departmental health and safety program review in accordance with the NFPA 1500 standard, and we use that as a benchmark going forward to address all the issues that were uncovered in that study. We do a major investigation reporting on all motor vehicle accidents, and we strive every day to make safety part of our culture. I was asked to kind of follow up right at the end and talk briefly about the Boston Marathon bombing. So that in itself could be a whole other presentation for much longer than 20 minutes. But a couple of things that I'd like to highlight. I think that one of the things that made us so effective in our response was a number of things. First was training. Our people were very well trained, so that goes well before the incident ever occurs. And then we have a detailed incident action plan where everybody is assigned a specific duty. They're briefed on what their duty is. They're given equipment, and they're provided communication so that everybody can communicate effectively at the scene. The specific responsibilities were briefed to each member, and they understood what they were doing. And then we had changes in manning throughout the event. So as the event starts, and there's not that many people, right, because the marathon starts 26 miles away, we had a set number of people. Throughout the day, we add more and more people, so we have our max number of people basically downtown at the finish line when the race was completing, when the elite finishers are crossing. And then after that, once the crowd starts to move away from the event, then we start to scale back down until eventually the event is completely over and we have nobody on scene. So we had a number of roles. You know, we had the 3 different public safety agencies there. We had the Boston Police Department, the Boston Fire Department, and Boston Emergency Medical Services. So the Emergency Medical Service is basically the city's ambulance and advanced life support professionals. So because of the marathon and we close off so many streets, we still need to be able to respond to the area where the marathon is being conducted, even though those streets are closed off. So we pre-stage people throughout that area, and our firefighters are all on radios, and they're in teams of 2, and they're there that if there's any calls in an area, whether it be a medical call or a fire alarm, they can quickly investigate that call and report back whatever they find. And then from that point, the incident commander at the scene can decide what other action needs to be taken. So most of our calls, even within the fire department, are emergency medical calls. So our people that were there are trained to respond to emergency medical calls. And that was one of the things I think that made the outcome so tremendous here is we had well-trained people there. And every single person who was treated at the scene and evacuated survived. And I think that's a testament to the training of our people as well as the bystanders and their ability and their willingness to assist in treating the victims. And then we have an excellent healthcare infrastructure here in the city. Does that answer the question?
I think very, very well so. Very well put. So I thank you for that. Speaking of safety, my next question to you is, are you using any computer or web-based solutions for your safety training programs?
Yes, we are. I spoke about the Fire Department Safety Officers Association and the fact that we partnered with them to provide incident safety officer training to our, specifically our safety officers and our chief officers. And we also are partnering with them right now, and there's a new program that they're rolling out in partnership with the NFPA, and that's Safety for the Company Officer. And that's all done on the internet, and we're going to put all our company officers through that training and certification program. We also use a program called Target Solutions, what we've tried to do is we find that when we take a company out of service for training, the best training we can give them is hands-on training, getting them down to our training facility, doing a live burn, or doing hazardous materials training where we make them set up everything, and the hands-on training we feel is the most important part of the adult learning. So what we're trying to do is take our classroom training and move that to the internet through this Target Solutions program, so that our firefighters, while they're in the firehouse, they can log on through the computer and they can take the classroom portion of these training evolutions. And then when we actually take them out of service, bring them to our training academy, the only thing they have to do there is a hands-on portion.
Okay, I have one more question for you, Rodrick, and this will be our final one for now. I'm sure you'd like to get back home at some point. My final question to you is, what technological improvements have you made to your fire apparatus to make them more safe?
That's a good question. You know, when I first took over, I didn't know much about fire apparatus and all the technological improvements, so I had to kind of educate myself a little bit. And we've made a lot of safety improvements. The first was one of our vendors had come to us and said, hey, you know, we were looking at your specification, and you don't specify stability control. So I didn't really understand stability control at that point. We weren't purchasing that. So we went and educated ourselves on the stability control. We put that in our specifications, and we started adding that into every piece of apparatus that we bought. Although we didn't have any rollovers, there were some very serious accidents in the United States. Chicago one, where an engine rolled over and killed the officer. So stability control, we think, was a big improvement. We also put in a better seatbelt system or restraint system. We also put airbags in the cab, not only in the front for the driver and the officer, but also in the rear for the crew. We also found that we've had a large problem with our firefighters don't want to wear their seatbelts. And if you look at the number of firefighters killed in the U.S., a large number have been killed by motor vehicle accidents, and the firefighters were not wearing their seatbelts. So we actually installed a panel above the officer, and it lights up when everybody has their seatbelt on. So he can see who's not wearing the seatbelt and ensure that everybody is belted up when they go on the run. So those were big improvements. I think the last biggest improvement was when I took over, firefighters were responsible for maintaining and repairing apparatus. They weren't trained. None of these guys were mechanics, and we had numerous difficulties. I was able to change that. We built a maintenance facility where everyone is required to be a certified mechanic, and they're required to be a certified emergency vehicle technician. Our supervisors are required to be master emergency vehicle technicians, so they have to pass every single emergency vehicle technician certification. There's 7 of them. They have to have all 7 of those. So that's been huge. And I think the last thing would be we require third-party testing for a lot of things. For example, our annual pump testing and certification and our ladder safety testing and certification. We do that through a third-party vendor, so that there's no question about how this was done, whether the standard was followed, and then we make whatever repairs are recommended by the third party. So those are probably, I think, the biggest ones that have maybe the longest lasting impact on safety of our apparatus.
On behalf of the UAE Civil Defense, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us on our 3rd Annual Fire Safety Technology Forum, Rodrick. And we wish you, your family, and the Fire Department of Boston the very best.
Thank you very much. Hopefully, maybe I can join again in person sometime in the future.
Yeah, actually, I said this before, but we were thinking of bringing you 3D next year with glasses.
I would love to come over there.
You didn't get that one, but that's okay.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Safe trip back home. I said next year we'll bring you 3D. We'll all have on glasses. He didn't hear it. Anyway, we wish you the best. And thank you once again for getting up so early to be with us here in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a very nice day, and good luck with the rest of your conference.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody give him a hand.